but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and we've got Kevin Wilson here with us on the show.
Howdy.
Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Well, you know, living the dream. Living the
dream. Awesome. Yeah, you know, I feel like it's been a little while since we've done a show together. It's been a whole week, but in coronavirus time, it just seems so long.
Yeah, no, it's an eternity. I mean, like, the entire season has shifted since the last time we talked. My yard went from, like, being barren and nothing to there's flowers everywhere. The trees are all green and flushed out. I don't know, my favorite time of year. I love this time of year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the last time I actually physically saw Kevin, there was snow outside.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So today is Tuesday. For those of you who might need help keeping track of days of the week, I know the calendars are basically meaningless at this point, and the only thing helping you guys know what day it is Radio Free New York.
Yeah. Well, that and Andrew Cuomo's PowerPoint presentations, he tells me what day of the week it is. I rely on Andrew Cuomo for everything now.
There you go. It tells you what day of the week it is, you know, what you can wear, how to think, what to believe. No. All right.
It makes the sunrise. All of it.
Yeah, you know, so one of the things that was pretty interesting. Actually, why don't I tell you guys one of the topics we're going to talk about today? We won't talk about it in the beginning here. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. One of the things that I want to talk about today is whether or not the tax increases that we're seeing, because we're seeing them all across the country, and today is our talk of the town, and your town is probably going to be doing a tax increase of some sort. City of Rochester is going to. Kevin sent me that information. Are these tax increases truly going to be due to COVID-19 or coronavirus, or are they because of bad governance? And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later. But before we do, somebody passed along a very interesting article to me from Syracuse.com about how the state wasn't actually collecting COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes. Kevin, I don't know if you got a chance to see this or if anybody brought that to your attention.
You know, I saw it scrolling Facebook this morning. I didn't have time to read it. I saved it. So maybe you explain it while I very quickly read it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So at first glance, I kind of felt like this was something we already knew, which was, you know, when this, 5,500 coronavirus cases came out of nursing homes. And so when I first scanned the article, I didn't realize the implications of it. But then after I read it a second time, I started understanding why this is such a bad thing. So let's take you guys back a little bit. You guys remember way back in the beginning when New York State shut down now 80 days ago. New York State, they activated their emergency system to collect daily information from nursing homes and hospitals all across the state, asking them to mandatorily, so not asking them, actually making it mandatory that they had to report data to the state. That data included the number of patients with COVID-19, how many masks they had on hand, how many shields they had on hand, and they asked the hospitals to report how many patients had died. But what wasn't requested in that data was the number of deaths of patients that died of COVID-19 in nursing homes. So why is that important? Well, it became important later because the count of deaths in nursing homes was actually extremely high, 5,500 cases. Now, of course, these people more than likely had this already listed on their death certificate, so I'm sure it was being counted in another place. CDC is probably receiving these numbers. I'm sure the state is receiving them somewhere as well. But the issue was these numbers were just kind of like aggregated together with other stuff, and it didn't raise the red flag that, I think that number was over 20% of deaths were occurring in these nursing home facilities. So on April 15th, New York State's health commissioner, Dr. Howard Zucker, started emailing these nursing homes and really not giving them a whole lot of time to respond to this data, which is another issue. We wonder why the communication has been so bad with this. I'll give you an example. On April 15th, he started thinking about the fact that, maybe we need to know from the 613 nursing homes in New York State how many deaths are actually happening here.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Late, but, makes sense, right? So on April 16th, all the nursing homes, they receive an email asking them for their death count, but not the retroactive numbers, just the numbers they had right then and there. Well, on the 17th, they then got a new survey saying the state wants all of the retroactive data, and it was sent at 7:03 in the morning with an 8:45 in the morning deadline. So
Wow.
these nursing homes had less than 2 hours to go re-scrape through all of the data they had and try to put together the information to give to the state. Well, no surprise with a short deadline like that. I bet you a lot of people checked their email at like 8:40, and
Yeah.
just sent whatever they had. Or some of the people probably didn't even see the email till past the deadline. And as you might guess, the data sent was inaccurate. I think if I recall, it was like 2,700 deaths or something. It was like wildly off. And it wasn't until later, when given a little more time, we got more accurate numbers. So this is kind of the background, the whole story of what happened. I think we should talk about why it's so important that government just be better, on so many
Yeah.
different levels. Kevin, I'll let you start off with your take since I just kind of rambled on a little bit.
No, you've explained the situation good, and it gave me a good chance to read the article, so I appreciate that. I'm looking at the situation, and it's, again, you're right. Government needs to do better, because what I think is going to end up happening here is that they're setting up a scapegoat for a problem that originated with the state, right? And you got to look at the situation, and I think you've talked about this on past shows before, where it's like, why wasn't New York State? We knew from the beginning that the most vulnerable population was nursing homes. Nursing homes are where we have to figure out, how to keep those residents safe. New York State not only dropped the ball on that, but is really responsible for spreading infections in nursing homes by requiring them to take on COVID-19 positive patients. And now they're trying to, I think, shift the blame onto them and say, like, they're not being forthcoming about this data. They're not being transparent with this data. These nursing homes, they need to be investigated more. That's what I think the state is preparing to do. But really, this is a mess all around, coming from a whole bunch of different places. And again, many of the deaths in New York State are coming from here, because again, that's where people are the most vulnerable. It's the people who are in these facilities where they're close together, and many of them have health conditions that would exacerbate the severity of catching coronavirus. And we're making policy affecting all of New York State based on incomplete and unclear data, much of which is coming from these nursing home situations. It's a mess. We need to demand better of our government.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And this just goes back to state government changing the goalpost constantly with this virus issue. If the state wanted accurate data, especially retroactively, they should give the nursing homes a little more time to make sure that the information that they have is correct. Like, first and foremost, Cuomo gets up there and he says, these are the facts and this is the science and we have the data to back it up. Well, if this is how Governor Cuomo and his team are collecting data, I gotta tell you, I can't look at these numbers as facts, and I can't look at the data that they say they have to back it up, because it's not going to be accurate. And if we're going to make all our decisions off of inaccurate data, we're going to make some pretty bad decisions. But of course, government's just going to say, hey, well, that's what the data told us, even though it was bad data. All right, guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
College Assistance Plus has worked with thousands of families, saving them millions of dollars. It can be stressful choosing the right college, but we're here to help. CA Plus will guide you from college visits to college graduation and through every step in between. Each student and family situation is different, and we work to accommodate those specific needs. Call today for a free family meeting, 585-582-1846, or visit collegeassistanceplus.com for more information. College is expensive. College Assistance Plus can help.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got Kevin Wilson here with us as well. And today is Tuesday. We're doing our Talk of the Town. And I think we should pick up tax increases. Kevin, how do you feel about tax increases?
Taxation is theft.
Taxation is theft. There you go.
No,
it's
it's
probably
extortion.
actually extortion, but we could go with theft.
I know. The alliteration is just so much better. It just works.
Yes,
I know it's more inaccurate. What taxation is extortion, whatever. But like the alliteration is nice.
It's true, and nobody ever seems to fact check the government, anyways. So
You gonna start fact checking our opinion show now?
Yeah, there you go. Yep. So what I want to talk about for today's talk of the town, and Kevin's actually the one that brought up this topic specifically to our local area, but I've seen news articles of other areas. I think one of the school districts locally, and I don't recall which district it is, so I don't want to cite the wrong district. They are increasing their school tax by 25%. Kevin, I don't know if you know which district that was.
I have an inkling of what it was, but I wanna make sure I'm right on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with a B and rhymes with Brighton, but I'm not totally sure if that was the one or not. I could be wrong. So City of Rochester, where we live, is also looking at tax increases, specifically property tax increases. I've seen some places suggest sales tax increases. Others have talked about school tax. Some have talked about property tax. I don't think I've seen anybody talking about an income tax increase yet. Kevin, I don't know if you've seen anything like that.
No, not yet. Not on the New York State level that I've seen, or at least not something that's a bill that seems like it's going anywhere. On the federal level, they're talking about payroll tax cuts. So, we may get that, not so much income tax cuts, but
Yeah.
we may get something.
And one of the things that I think is really important that I want to make sure that you guys always hear from me as often as possible. Tax cuts sound good, they sound great, but it doesn't matter unless we cut spending. So
Yep.
we'll hear a lot of people say, oh, we're going to cut taxes here. And really, they just shift the tax somewhere else. Somehow their budget goes up 5, 6, 7, 10%, but they quote unquote cut taxes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then what happens at the federal level too, and I think Republicans are especially bad about this, is they say, oh, we're going to cut taxes, but they don't bother cutting spending too, which means that we're just taking on more debt and we're shifting that tax burden not to fees or some other area, but to the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the thing I want to ask everybody who's listening to the show today, and Kevin, I'll pose this to you too, is are these tax increases truly due to COVID-19, or is it due to bad governance?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a little bit of both. Like there is some legitimacy that local governments are facing budget crises because the economy is slowing down, right? So if you're relying on sales tax or you're relying on other types of transaction taxes, it's going to be an issue if you're going to do that. Now, a lot of towns, most of their tax collection is done through property taxes, and the property hasn't changed any, right? So if that's your primary mode of collecting fees, then you should be able to work with what you have. A lot of them plan poorly, though. I think what you're getting at is that a lot of these governments were already kind of running into some trouble prior to this crisis, and now this provides a really convenient excuse to say, oh, well, we have to raise taxes now because of this emergency situation. Sorry, our hands are tied. We wouldn't normally do this, but here we go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something I want to point out to everybody listening to this show is the property tax cap. And if you guys recall back in 2018 when Larry Sharp and I ran for office, one of the things that we talked about very often is how the property tax cap is truly ineffective because government can at any time declare an emergency and bypass that property tax cap. And you and I don't get to vote on it. They get to choose. And in this case, this might be the first ever actual emergency the government's really had that's legitimate. But I think it's important that we talk about this and emphasize that this has been happening for years and years and years. And now that there's truly an emergency, it's not being used any differently. The taxes are being bypassed by emergency the same way they have well before the emergency ever existed.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It all ends up being an illusion to just say, okay, well, we have to do this stuff because of this situation, as we kind of said. But a lot of the core services, particularly at the local government level, hasn't really changed, right? And in fact, like some of the need for those services has been reduced. So you would think, like with the reduced need for some services, unless you're keeping people employed for the sake of keeping them employed, it would be easier to adjust the budget in this type of situation without needing to raise taxes. And yet, in the city of Rochester specifically, and that's easy to pick on because they're right in front of me, it says that there's going to be a tax increase, and it says the mayor says it's only going to translate to an additional $134 in taxes on average, but it never seems to quite work out that way.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, let's just sit there and look at what $134 means to somebody on an annual basis. $134. I don't know what's the current minimum wage right now. Is it 12.40? Is that the minimum wage? That might be the New York City minimum wage.
Yeah,
we'll call it 12.40, and then the first thing we want to do is subtract about 30% from taxes, right? Because that's what people are gonna end up doing. So we'll take that, go down. So after taxes, if you're making $8.68 an hour, which is just painful. And let's go ahead and take $134 and divide that up. So an extra 15 and a half hours a year families are going to have to put in, assuming that that's what they're making to cover this.
Yeah, so that's what it's going to be for some of these families. I mean, and it says it's a tax on homeowners, right? It's a tax on property, which of course, if you're a renter, you still pay that. Your landlord is not being generous in paying those taxes for you. And I don't know, how that $134 is spread out, and whether or not it's, much higher or much lower across like different properties. But yeah, every little thing chips away at you, right? It's only a few hours a year, sure, but it's the property taxes, it's the payroll taxes, it's the state income taxes, it's all sales taxes. All this stuff adds up. And I don't have this thing in front of me, but what have you seen that thing where it's how many hours you have to work for the government in a year, like how many months you have to work for the government in a year just to pay your taxes?
My guess is it's about 9
day?
months. Yeah. I think you only get to keep your income 3 or 4 months of the year, if I recall.
All right, so Tax Freedom Day in 2019 was April 16th. So the average American, if you averaged out what you paid in taxes over the year, would have to work through April 16th just to pay all of their wages towards the government.
That's the average. Let's not let's not be average. Let's be above average. Let's be New Yorkers, Kevin. We're
I guess
probably working a whole lot
May
more here in New
3rd
York.
for New York.
There you go. So what was that? The first 5 months of the year, you're working just to pay your taxes to the government. So I overestimated, but it feels that way for sure.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because it's of course you're not like working straight through and just like, all right, May 3rd, now I'm free. No, you're paying that ridiculous amount of money throughout the entire year. And in case you're wondering, New York is the latest one.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no,
only tied for DC.
So what's that equate to weekly? That's got to equate to 17 hours a week you work. If you're working a regular 40-hour week, your first 17 hours are going to pay taxes, and then you get to keep 23 hours of your 40-hour week. I think that's about right. Maybe it's closer to 15 hours a week. Yeah, still, that's a lot of hours to be working for the government. To have a lot of potholes on your street, and apparently the taxes aren't fixing the weather any either. So.
No, it's not. It's crazy. I thought paying taxes would fix the weather and everyone would stay in New York and we'd all be good.
Yeah, manufacturing wouldn't be running away and jobs wouldn't be going to other states and all that. Yeah.
Andrew, why isn't this working?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought for sure if we paid our taxes like the good citizens we are, and if we worked our 15 to 17 hours a week to cover the government's expenses, they could at least, fix pollution, fix the weather, make sure there's jobs available.
The roads?
Fix the roads maybe. I don't know. All right, guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about these tax increases, and I think we're going to talk about this $3 trillion stimulus plan after that. You guys are listening to Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment.
More than twice the power. More powerful FM 92.1, FM 95.5 West, and 1040 AM WYSL Avon Rochester.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. Partly cloudy, a bit cooler. We'll drop into the mid-40s on Wednesday. A nice sun-filled sky out there. Temps in the upper 60s to near 70, cooler by the lake. On Thursday, a beautiful day, mostly sunny. Temps in the 60s and 70s. Again, though, will be just a bit cooler near Lake Ontario. 70s to near 80 expected by the weekend. I'm Rich Canilia, WYSL.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Because your future is worth it. MGM Associates Insurance. Proudly serving the region since 1984, MGM can meet your coverage needs, ranging from home, condo, and auto, all the way to specialized policies for business, workers' comp, to limo and taxi insurance, and coverage for tech professionals like IT specialists. They can also help lead you through the confusing maze in the new world of health insurance coverage and options. MGM Associates is large enough to serve you, but small enough to care, so you don't have to wait in line on some 800 number to get prompt personal attention. MGM Associates is the only winner of the National Best Practices Award 5 times in a row. MGM is proud to support veterans groups, including Heroes Home Advantage. For your personal, business, home, or professional insurance needs, put the experience of MGM Associates Insurance on your team. Locally and proudly owned at 1745 Penfield Road in Penfield. 381-7008 or mgminsure.com, an associate of Finger Lakes Fire and Casualty, Route 227 in Trumansburg, New York.
Stop into Springwater Amish Workshop to enhance your outdoor spaces. We have Amish-built yard furniture, decorative yard art and novelty pieces, lighthouses, windmills, and wishing wells. Our picnic tables, benches, garden benches, rocking chairs, swings, and gliders can be made out of poly in your choice of colors or double kiln-dried, organically treated southern yellow pine. Summer will be here soon, so don't delay. We're reopening for business, and we're following COVID-19 CDC and DOH guidelines. Did you buy baby chicks? We have 2 chicken coops in stock ready for delivery. Check the new inventory of 2020 storage sheds and gazebos arriving weekly, or we can order just what you want. Check our website, springwateramishworkshop.com, or like us on Facebook for a look at what we can do. Springwater Amish Workshop, 7936 Mill Street, Springwater.
FM Talk.
For breaking news.
Right now, a police investigation is underway in this city.
Police are still working to determine exactly what happened here tonight.
For weather where you live.
A nice chance for some sunshine.
For investigative reports.
We're about to show you the most unique crime prevention story we've ever done.
Who's going to know more about breaking into homes than the people who actually did it?
Watch News 10 NBC. It's where WYSL listeners get their news.
This is attorney Paul Simonelli for the Wolford Law Firm, where we understand the challenges facing small business in New York State. Our practice can help with all forms of business formation, employment, and contract issues, non-compete agreements, and the tricky matters of succession when it's time to retire or sell to new owners. For experienced legal counsel for new or existing businesses, we can help. We're the Wolford Law Firm, 16 East Main Street, Rochester. Call 325-8000 or visit wolfordfirm.com.
Villa of Hope is in this with you. Fear of COVID-19 and uncertainty about the future creates a need for many people to get more support from their community. For many, things like not knowing how you can access childcare so you can go to work, wondering if you can go to work, and not being able to pick up the groceries you need because of empty shelves can cause anxiety and stress. This is serious. Talk to someone. Call 1-833-993-HOPE.
Livingston County Pizza offers a full gluten-free menu and bakery along with their regular menu, so your family can enjoy their favorites, including burgers, sandwiches, and even hand-breaded onion rings and Friday fish fries with their dedicated to gluten-free fryer. Livingston County Pizza, you won't believe your belly.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got Kevin Wilson here with us for our Talk of the Town. And we're just talking about tax increases. They're coming up. They're coming up. I would say it's probably a valid thing to say that most of these are happening because of COVID-19. However, because of years and years and years of bad governance, it's much worse than it could or would have been.
Yeah. And so we're going to get to what the federal government is doing about this in a little bit, but like kind of to sum some of this stuff up, a lot of local and state governments have been running on the edge, taking on a lot of debt for some projects. And if a small crisis hits them, they weren't really prepared to continue doing everything that they promised you that they would do, right? Like, not everyone, but like a lot of local governments just really aren't prepared for a shock to their revenue stream, which is what this is. If they're collecting those county taxes or sales taxes or any other type of fees, if that suddenly dries up, they're not sure what to do. They don't have any alternative, and they don't have any savings in many of these cases. And
yeah, and I think it's important that we talk about how this is wildly different than private industry. I mean, say you had a subscription to some service, and then all of a sudden, midway through your subscription, they gave you less. You as the consumer would be like, hey, wait a minute, you gave me less, I need more. And sometimes midway through, subscription services will increase their price, and they always give you significantly more, or some sort of incentive or good thing, like, hey, we're bumping you up from $7 a month to $11 a month, but we're going to give you all this cool other stuff too. You can stream music now and get this other thing. Government's like, hey, we've been abusing you for years. Your subscription is forced by law. Crap, we screwed up. You know what? You're going to pay more. Oh, by the way, we haven't fully been giving you the services we ever promised to begin with.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah,
how do I get out of this?
If I could unsubscribe, wow. Could you imagine actually, if everybody could just take a quick moment and imagine how different our country would be if government was not allowed to take on debt, period. If government couldn't take on debt, what would our country look like? And to be honest, looking at the people who run our country and run government, local, state, and federal, I don't know if it would be better or worse. To be honest, I don't know.
So I'll say this. I am not actually against all debt, right? And I don't think we should be. Right? Like, I think there's good debt, and this is how local and state governments are supposed to operate, right? Like, you take on debt for, like, capital expenses, right? So if you're going to build something really, really big and really necessary, right? So you take on, you go issue, some local bonds for building a bridge or something, right? Wouldn't make sense to pay for that all at once. So you get a loan just like you would with a house, right? Like you get a mortgage to buy that, and it makes more sense to pay that off over 10, 15, 20, 30 years, however you're doing it. I'm not against that. Where you get into trouble is what the federal government's doing, where they take on debt for all the operating expenses, where it's just like, well, we can't afford what we're doing this year, so we'll just take on a few billion more here or there in debt, maybe a few trillion, who knows, this year anyway, $5 trillion in debt, or $5 trillion more spending. That's where you run into the really serious issues. That's where it starts to become unsustainable. And you could do the same thing with the corporate bonds and the capital expenditures too. You could take on way too much, and it's way more than you can handle. And I think that's what a lot of local governments end up doing, is they end up building these roads, this infrastructure, these buildings that sound really nice at the time, and like, oh, we'll pay for it in a few years. But when the bills come due and your revenue stream dries up, that's where you get into a lot of trouble. And that's where a lot of local governments and state governments are right now, is they're like, oh, there's a shock to this money coming in, so we're going to have to hose our citizens with taxes or default on these payments.
Yeah. So kind of put that in perspective once again. In private industry, this would be like an ice cream shop sitting here and saying, all right, we have ice cream scoopers and ice cream stirrers, and we're only selling $20 a day worth of ice cream, and we just don't have enough money to keep on 10 ice cream stirrers and 10 ice cream scoopers. So we're going to take out a $3 trillion loan to keep paying the stirrers and the scoopers.
That'll cover it.
Even though we've only got $20 a day coming in. I mean, that's kind of it. Nobody would do that except for government.
Well, it's not their money.
Exactly. It's just so terrible. I think maybe we should let me just see here if there was anything worth. I think it's fair to mention, because we did talk about the city of Rochester. We did talk about how the taxes are going up. The city budget for this upcoming year that they're putting together is actually 5% less, down $26 million from the previous year. So I figured it's probably worth giving them credit where credit is due. And despite the fact that taxes are going up in terms of revenue, spending is actually going down. So I think that it's worth at least acknowledging that somebody made that effort and made that spending cut.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I was thinking about that during the break too. Is that we should acknowledge, like, that's what governments do need to do. Like, to me, it's like, okay, if you're going to say that a tax increase is necessary, where are the sacrifices to be able to kind of get down to where government needs to be. And I'm not going to say that I agree with everything in the budget and that the Democrats in the city of Rochester are doing a great job. But at least on that very, very high level, they are taking the fiscal responsibility to cut the budget, which is, again, not something that I can say about most politicians, Republicans or Democrats, is they usually ends up being like, okay, so we're going to raise taxes to pay for more stuff that, is a right. Or stuff that we absolutely don't need at all, or is a giveaway to their friend. And then, on the Republican side, like, okay, we're going to cut your taxes, but spending cuts are really hard and it feels bad, so we're just going to take on debt.
Yeah, and I think one other thing that is worth, just starting to think about is, how do we get government to a point where it actually does scale? Where taxes, revenue comes in, and you guys know me, I'm always like minimalist on taxes. So that 5% cut in spending, I think, is actually a great first start. But I think we need to do more. And I think that the question is, how do we get government to scale? And what I mean by scale is roll more back, and when there is no need for services, and that could be a whole hour discussion there if there truly is a need for a lot of the services government provides. How do we get government so it does scale, so that this increase never needed to happen? How do we get so government, when the revenue is coming down less than projected, that government can automatically scale down so that there is no need to increase what people are paying. And that could be like a multi-day discussion easily.
Yeah, no, we really should do like a whole hour like just on that though. Like let's do a deep dive into some of the policy of like, all right, what was local governance like? What should it look like, right? In a framework of limited government and responsible government, because I think most people probably don't know what that looks like anymore. Like it's unfortunately very rare to see a local or state government act responsibly. That I think your average person, maybe not your average Radio Free New York listener, but I think your average person not listening to this excellent show probably doesn't know what like responsible governance looks like anymore, because Republicans and Democrats have not given us that for way, way, way too long. At least not many of them.
Yeah, and I gotta say, this might actually be the first time I have seen a cut in government spending since I can remember. I'm going to be honest with you guys. And those of you who think it's a Democrat-Republican thing, if you're familiar with the city of Rochester, it's all straight Democrat. The city council, all Democrats. The mayor, Democrats. And they got a 5% cut, not in taxes, but in spending. So
Yeah.
we should really push our elected officials across all party lines to be doing the same thing. You guys are listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this $3 trillion stimulus. I know Kevin's got some information for us on that. We'll be back in a moment on Radio Free New York.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
It's time to reopen Livingston County. We're a group of citizens advocating an immediate end to so-called pause orders, threatening the livelihoods of local business owners and free choice for consumers. We believe all businesses are essential and all workers are essential workers. We urge everyone to support your local small business and small business owners to open back up immediately. Permanent economic losses are far more dangerous than the hyped COVID scare. Reopen Livingston, a group of your concerned neighbors and citizens proud of our freedoms and our Constitution.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
All right. right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got Kevin Wilson here for our Talk of the Town. And what might you be talking about in your town, in your city, in your suburb, in your county? Probably this $3 trillion stimulus plan that is going. And I don't believe it's passed the Senate yet. Did it die in the Senate, Kevin?
It is only passed the House. It is still, as far as I'm aware, being discussed in the Senate. So there'll probably be some sort of, I think something will pass, and there'll be some sort of reconciliation with it. But it has passed the House, more along a party line vote this time. Like the last, the CARES Act, it was overwhelmingly supported. And in fact, there wasn't really an actual vote on it. It was more an acceptance. It was like a unanimous type of thing. And then a few members of Congress registered their no votes and had to go in and manually say that they weren't. So this one's more party line, and this one is called the HEROES Act because, goodness, everything has to be a ridiculous acronym. It is the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act.
Well, you know that they like the marketing on that one. And something I want to point out, by the way, because you hit two pretty important things. The first is, for the first stimulus bill, Democrats and Republicans were very much willing to get in bed with each other to further the debt in our country. For first and foremost. Second is, things are starting to get back to normal when everything shifts back to party line based voting. So that unfortunately might be good news for the country. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the part that's going to be terrible is that they're going to come to some kind of compromise, and somehow we will be spending like 3.5 trillion instead of 3 trillion. Like this, like the compromise is going to be that the Republicans want to spend more money somehow. That's where it ends up coming out of it.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, and unfortunately, somehow the American people will get less, and big private corporations will get the most. And it sounds like our local governments are going to get a hefty bailout as well.
$1 trillion, including $35 billion for New York State. And so, kind of in concert with the rest of our discussion for this show, a lot of states feel like they are struggling right now and they need some money because they've lost money from income taxes, they've lost money from sales taxes, and they've lost fees collected, and there's a ton of pressure on their unemployment system because of everyone being out of work and the state shutting down. So New York State is spending just a crazy amount of money just telling people to stay home. And now, surprisingly, not surprisingly to us, but they are starting to run out, which is why Governor Cuomo has the ability to unilaterally modify the budget at will, and he is begging for a bailout, and it looks like he may get it. And same with local governments. There's money for local governments as well, in these bailout funds. So local governments who are struggling.
I want to jump in on this real quick and just say that I do not feel bad at all for New York State running out of unemployment money. And here's why. For over 12 years, I have paid into New York State unemployment insurance as an employer. Actually, for over 13 years now. Without any claims or anything like that, without receiving anything back. And the state mismanaged that money. And every single employer in the state has been paying this money for ever since they've opened and hired their first employee. And sure, some of them have had people cash in on that claim, but what was the average unemployment rate been in the state? Let's call it always less than 10%, right? So 90% of the people in New York, which I think that's a very generous number, by the way, have probably never collected unemployment from the state, and the state couldn't budget that 90%. And sure, there's risk factors and things like that, but what it comes down to is they're planning. They've received all this money for a very long time. It's been mismanaged for a very long time. And here we are, not even a full 3 months in, and they've ran out of money.
Yep. And so, you know, I mean, the interesting thing about this is, so one, the state's hoping to get this bailout because they mismanaged their money. And I think there's some legitimate discussion. You'll see the Democrats particularly say, like, oh, well, we can't let these states go broke. Like, that is an unacceptable option. But you have to think, like, there are some structural issues, particularly with New York State and some of the other states, that were pre-existing. They existed as financial issues way before the coronavirus crisis, and this just brought them to the forefront of our minds here. And so why should other states bail out New York? Now, I know New York is right now a net taxpayer to the federal government, but nonetheless, like, part of New York doing what it's able to do is by playing fast and loose with the rules and by taking on a lot of structural debt and a lot of financial obligations that it couldn't afford when a crisis hits, which is the same thing that happened in 2008 too. And what ends up happening is that it ends up being a shock to, like, the education system instead. It's never like we're going to cut lawmaker pay and bureaucratic positions. It ends up being the stuff that people actually care about a bit. And I have my own thoughts on education, but New York State has consistently mismanaged its funds, has put itself in a precarious position, and when something bad happens, you know, everyone feels good before because we're spending a lot of money on stuff. Well, I don't feel good, but like your average person and your politician feels good spending other people's money. It shouldn't be a surprise when a crisis happens that we're in trouble, and now we need a bailout. And
but Kevin, didn't you hear Cuomo say in his press release that that's just not true? New York has always been a very frugal state, and we've been very good with our money.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe it either. Actually, I it's not even that I don't believe it. I know that it's factually wrong and incorrect based on every budget I've ever seen from state government.
Yeah, no, it ain't true. Like, I think Cuomo's like definition of fiscal responsibility is that he doesn't cave into like every single progressive agenda item out there, and by that measure, by setting that bar in a ridiculous direction, he looks responsible. He's like, well, I didn't cave into every crazy thing that my party asked for, so I'm a moderate. So by comparison,
there you go, Cuomo the moderate.
Cuomo the moderate. That's how he looks to a lot of people, you know. Whereas it's like, all right, just because you're moderate, you're closer to the Republicans who are spending irresponsibly in some of these places, and you're further away from the Democrats who want to pretend that money's not real, does not mean that you're spending responsibly.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination.
So yeah, I don't know if Congress should be bailing out all these states, or if there should be conditions attached to the money that's being given to New York and some of these other states. Like, should the government give them a blank check to be able to keep doing whatever they're doing without creating any safeguards to make sure that this type of stuff doesn't happen again?
Well, you know, it would be very interesting to see if the federal government comes up with any sort of clawbacks or metrics that the states have to hit. But my gut tells me that even if they did, government is so used to being able to be exempted and bailed out, just like with the Rochester City School District. We'll just run ourselves into the ground. And then when we say that we're failing, we'll say, you can't let us fail, give us more money. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen with the states. Even if they get this money and if there is clawbacks, New York State's going to run another deficit. And when the federal government says, hey, time to pay up, New York State's going to say, we don't have the money and you're not going to let us fail. Are you really going to let New York State file for bankruptcy? Help us, help us, help us. Make a big stink about it in the media. And what's going to happen? Federal government's going to cave in.
It's going to happen. Because, I mean, they're not wrong. It's very destructive for a state to declare bankruptcy, but we have to expect responsibility too.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are listening to Radio Free New York. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow.